Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Hey guys, today we're going to do a comparison between the possible two best tablets out for each OS right now. You have the iPad mini going against the new Nexus 7 or the Nexus 7 FHD, standing for Full HD. And today we're going to see which one's really the best one, comparing them both in our categories to see which one fits your needs and which one you should pick up. So let's start off and see which one really is the best for your money. When it comes to look and feel, these tablets are actually fairly similar in their design. I do believe that Nexus took some cues from their first Nexus and made it more of a cleaner finish that is similar to the iPad mini. Now with the iPad mini, you have a design that really is standard now, and this is going to be taken from the new iPad as well, the new iPad 5, I believe it's going to be now. We'll take the same cue and going to have the same kind of design style and feel. So it's been favorable. However, I do have to say, I don't know if it's just because of the sides, but it really doesn't feel as nice to hold. Now I have a similar issue with the Nexus on this one, but because of the bigger size, it tends to be a bit more annoying how the corners and sides are. Just not as much of a fan of it, but it definitely is a sleek looking design, very thin, but I would say in easiness to hold, I do like the Nexus better. Although the sides are kind of similar, it just has a little bit more of a curve, so it just fits a little bit easier when holding on the sides, and the touch, soft touch goes all the way around the corners, whereas you do not have that. Really kind of feels more metallic on the corners and kind of sharp with the iPad mini. So it is something I do appreciate on the Nexus a bit more for that reason. Also just very, very good. Definitely feels like a premium style. Now I'm not sure if that's just because it is a slightly heavier one compared to the iPad mini, but definitely just feels a bit more premium, I would say, comparing to the iPad mini in terms of how it feels. And again, it could be because of the weight and it's just more compact, but definitely has a bit better feel to it in comparison. Both tablets, one thing I've found kind of hard with each of them is it's kind of hard to push the button when they're laying flat. That goes for the Nexus as well. You kind of have to raise it up a little bit. So just one interesting tidbit I've noticed with both. Now let's go into the rest, but with look and feel, I would say overall the Nexus does a bit better job. Now when it comes to web browsing, we do have two obvious things right away. One, the iPad mini will have a bigger screen, so you have a little bit more real estate to view. However, that doesn't always necessarily mean a better view. As we can see, one thing right away is you actually, on the same website, can see more on the screen, whereas you can on this screen, simply because websites are more designed for 16:9 and just fits it better. However, the second thing we'll make very apparent is the text. The text on these two devices are very different. You have a full 1080p screen on the Nexus device, whereas on the iPad mini you only have 1024 by 768, so very much lower resolution for a bigger size screen. So even from further away, you can see the Nexus text a bit more clearly in comparison, and I have not zoomed in at all. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll definitely notice a huge difference in just the clarity of the text. I'm trying to match them up now, and even from the same kind of distance, it's just sharper. Everything just reads clear, and it's just easier to read from further away. So that is one advantage to the Nexus in terms of both of these. Now when it comes to loading web pages, let's take a look. And we'll see if both give similar to what we've seen before shooting the video. So it's looking fairly similar. The iPad mini is still moving over here, and the Nexus is still moving over here. So this time the iPad mini seemed to load it a bit quicker than the Nexus, and now the Nexus is done. So this is a little different each time. Typically what I've seen between these two tablets is on a website you never visited before, the Nexus will tend to load it quicker, as where the iPad mini will tend to load it quicker if it's a website you've frequently visited. So because I visited both these websites, or the same website on both tablets before, the iPad minis had a slight edge on the speed. Now when it comes to scrolling, both exhibit fairly fluid scrolling. However, it seems to go a bit better with the Nexus if you wanted to go all the way to the bottom or something like that. The iPad mini just tends to slow down a little bit, has a bit more tranquil, whereas the Nexus can kind of get you there quicker, it seems like. Now when it comes to pinch to zoom, we do have a definite winner, at least for the most part, and that is the iPad mini. It just has a better pinch to zoom. We tend to have a lot of, I'm not sure if it's just Asus has never had a good web browsing experience. It's just something I've experienced. Asus is who makes the Nexus, and it just never had the best web browsing experience. And it's not that it's bad, it's just when comparing it to the iPad mini, you can definitely see that the iPad mini has an advantage on that. And when it comes to the double tap, let me zoom all the way out. So fairly comparable, although I would say this iPad has had a little bit of trouble lately with the touchscreen sensitivity for some reason. So fairly comparable, although with the double tap, but pinch to zoom is definitely cleaner looking on here. Overall, it's fairly similar. The advantage, of course, always that I give to Androids is that if you want to, you can use a third-party browser to use full Adobe Flash, whereas you can't do that on an iPad to the same degree. However, just for the more consistency, I would say overall it will go to the iPad mini for the web browsing. Just, I mean, continuously doing the pinch to zoom, it just seems to go a little bit better. Now, obviously, the Nexus has clarity, but you know, overall, I would say the web browsing experience is slightly more enjoyable on the iPad mini. Not that the Nexus is bad, but when comparing to it, it's just, I would say not as good. Now, again, these are with the stock browsers. Typically, if you use a better browser than the Chrome one, you will have a better experience in the Nexus. But to be fair, I just wanted to be fair and use the stock browsers. So for comparing the web browsing, we'll go to the iPad mini. Now when it comes to music, I would definitely say there's a clear winner. Now there are different placements for their music. So on the iPad mini, you have them towards the bottom, whereas the Nexus, you do have much better placement on both the backs of it, but still I would say there is a clear winner. And first we're going to play the iPad mini, then switch to the Nexus, then go back and forth. Okay, let's play.
But all that money don't equal the price of fame. From LA to New York, Seattle to the Bay, West Side, night skies, real, I hope you get laid. Yeah, down in Vegas, they know I'm coming late. Lots of show and cash, headed out to the state. I was a boy with a dream, had my head in the clouds. Now I'm sleeping first class, got a bed in the clouds. Hit my pops to pick me up, and said he was proud. King shit with a beanie on instead of a crown. Yeah, counting on my blessings. Shout out to the Most High. Started from the bottom, now I'm sitting at the most high. Cheapsies to the business, now I'm literally so fly. Motivated by my brokenness, guess that's why they call it coach, right? Yeah. Back when I was broke, I was asking why I'd go through all this trouble, wipe the tears up out of my eye. Connected to my fans like we all up on that Wi-Fi. They say the sky's the limit, I'm just starting and I'm sky high. Fast car, silly boy.
So hopefully you guys could hear that pretty clearly. It's definitely that the iPad mini just has much louder speakers. It's not that the Nexus has bad speakers by any means. It's always very clear. However, it's just so much lower compared to the iPad mini. Neither one of these have been the best speakers we've ever heard from a tablet, but when it comes to listening to music on these two devices, without a headphones and without a Bluetooth speaker, you are going to want to go with the iPad mini. Now, when it comes to the camera, we definitely have an interesting choice here. So overall, they're going to be very similar. They have both 5 megapixels in the back. However, the iPad mini has a 1.2 megapixel in the front, and the Nexus has a 1.0 in the front. And it does kind of show that on both of them. So for one, when it comes to color reproduction with the rear camera, the Nexus 7 plays a more accurate role with reproducing the colors, just the green, the yellow, as well as they just all stand out a bit clear on here. Not to mention the text clarity on the 5 megapixel. The Google image just tends to be a bit better on the Nexus as well. So it's just one thing that it just looks a bit better on the Nexus. So clarity wise, not to mention lighting, as you can see, these were both taken on the same light, but the Nexus allowed for much better lighting compared to the iPad mini. So overall, I would say for rear photo taking, it would go to the Nexus. However, for the front-facing camera, they're a bit different. I would say in terms of lighting, again, the Nexus just does a bit better job of lighting, whereas iPad typically does tans to skin tone, I've noticed. However, when it comes to clarity, I would say overall it just seems that the iPad has a little bit better clarity on the camera portion. However, it's really hard. Overall, I'm going to give this one a tie. Both do good jobs. For front-facing camera, it might be a little bit better on the iPad mini. However, for rear camera, I would definitely say the Nexus does a better job. So overall, I will give this a tie between the cameras, rear going to the Nexus, and front face slightly going to the iPad mini. Now, when it comes to gaming, it's easily going to go to the Nexus 7. You definitely just have a much better gaming experience, much better graphics card compared to the iPad mini. The iPad mini is great for basic games, but when it comes to high-end games, it does tend to stutter a bit, just because it has an older graphics processor compared to the current iPad, which has no problem with the higher-end games. So overall, for the higher-end games, this one does have the newer graphics card, the Adreno 330, and it just does a great job with gaming. So overall, I would go with the Nexus 7 for any serious gamers out there. When it comes to battery life, it's going to go to the Nexus 7, just a bit longer battery life. Both are really good, though. I do want to stress that. I mean, both for typical users, you're going to get about a day usage of battery, and you'll be just fine. Overall, however, when using both tablets, both tend to drain, I would say, a good amount when using them, depending on how you're using them, of course. But overall, for movie watching and just everything I've experienced with it, the Nexus just seems to do a better job of battery life. Now, if you're watching straight movies, you're going to get about 5 hours on here, about 4 hours on here. However, if you're doing typical usage, both will tend to give you about anywhere from 6 hours to 8 hours, depending on how you're using them. But most users can get through a day definitely with just typical use. Overall, though, the Nexus just kind of seemed to last about, I would say, roughly half an hour more than the iPad mini. So not dramatic difference, but if I'm using both about the same, it tends to be about half an hour to an hour longer. Extras. man, was this just weird. Extras are not really present on both, so I had to kind of just really think about what I usually give with extras. So the next thing when devices don't have extras, because neither one of these have expandable memory, neither of them have an IR blaster, neither one of them have special sensors. So overall, you know, the Nexus, the only thing that it has over is, you know, you have GPS, Wi-Fi Direct, and things like that, hardware-wise. So it had a little bit of an edge when it came to hardware in terms of the built-in stuff that are extra. But also, I would say that you do have something on the Nexus as well when you go to the plug-in. So Lightning adapter versus the micro USB adapter. The micro USB on the Nexus will allow you to plug in anything without jailbreaking or rooting or anything like that, but just plugging both in. The Nexus adapter will allow you to use flash drives, hard drives, even fun stuff like a PS3 controller just by plugging in. Whereas the iPad mini with the Lightning adapter, you can get a memory card reader and a USB to detect the camera, but that's about it. You can't really plug in a lot of extras to it. So overall, in terms of extras, it will go to the Nexus 7. Now with these two tablets, we do have a definite price difference. The iPad mini comes in at $329 for the 16 gig model, whereas the Nexus 7 comes in at $229 for the 16 gig model. They both have the current OS always on their tablets. You have higher specs, of course, with the Nexus 7, whereas you have a bigger screen with the iPad mini. However, in terms of best bang for your buck, it's just going to go to the Nexus. For the $100 more, you're not really gaining as much as you should be for $100 in comparison to tablets at this price point. So therefore, because you can pretty much do everything on here on this one for $100 less, the price factor will definitely go to the new Nexus 7. Now let's tally them up and see how it went. When it comes to look and feel, it will go to the Nexus 7. It just has a bit better look and feel, and honestly just feels better compared to the iPad mini. I feel if the iPad mini would just have a bit better rounded corners, it would have done a little bit better on this point, but the Nexus just has done a great job for a great look and feel. Web browsing, we'll go to the iPad mini. Just has a slight advantage with its fluidity over the Nexus 7. However, this is just something that I would say Asus tablets tend to struggle with, and that is web browsing. Music, we'll go to the iPad mini. Speakers are just louder, even though the Nexus has a better placement, it's just not as loud as the iPad mini, which just has a way higher output for the music. Movies, we'll go to the Nexus 7. We saw the clarity difference. It's just so much better for watching movies. You have a 1080p screen versus slightly less than the standard 720p screen on an iPad mini. Not to mention the aspect ratio of a 16:9 just does a better job with movies. So, camera, we'll go to the iPad mini. The camera actually is a draw. The camera portion was going to go to the iPad mini, and then it was going to go to the Nexus, and in the end I just had to make it a draw, simply because the iPad mini had a better front camera, I would say, slightly, whereas the Nexus 7 had a better rear camera. So therefore I just made it a draw. I wasn't sure which one was more important to users, but it depends on that one. If your front-facing camera for video chatting is more better, or if your rear-facing camera for taking shots that you can't take with your phone are better, then there you go. Gaming, definitely going to go to the new Nexus. Just has much better gaming experience, especially for high-end games. It just runs more smoother. Battery life, going to go to the Nexus 7. Just tends to run about a half an hour to an hour longer battery life, although both have a good battery life. Extras. Extras will slightly go to the Nexus, just a little bit extras in terms of hardware. And then, of course, you do have just a little bit more in terms of extras for the adapters you can connect to it and what you can connect to it. And price point. Price point is definitely going to go to the Nexus for $100 less. You don't really gain anything by going the $100 more route with the iPad mini. Therefore, the Nexus is the better bang for your buck. And so that's the overall tally, which goes to the Nexus 7. The Nexus 7 is overall better for most users for doing most things. However, if you're a big web browser, need to take video chatting, and that's a big part of your daily day, and have to have the loudest speakers, that's the advantages of the iPad mini. Otherwise, you're going to want to go with the Nexus 7 for a much better bang for your buck and better experience overall. Alright guys, hopefully you found this video informative. Thank you for watching. Please give a like and thumbs up down below and leave some fun comments. This has been RICKY, the Android Guy.